audio. Thank you, Deborah. You were the only one that told me on the Substack that we didn't have audio. Thank you, Deborah, right here today. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is why it's important for you guys to interact with me so I know what's going on. I've been talking for 7 minutes and there was no audio. Come on, you guys. Okay. Anyhow, the article I have coming out is really about breaking that stigma and breaking that shame down. Okay. So worked in the medical field before I became a counselor. Okay. So when I was working in the medical field, I was still an addict, even though for a long time I didn't realize I was an addict. But when I started doing EMT work, and specifically when I started working inside the ER systems, right, in my local area. So I live in northern Wisconsin. So the EMT service I ended up working for actually covered Oneida, Vilas, and Lincoln counties, I want to say. And part of Iron, I think, too, depending. But so we were a big service, right? Lots of different stations. But the really interesting part is I got to work in the ER. And when I worked in the ER, I really got to see how people were treated. Okay. And I, at the time, again, wasn't in the best place in life, right? A lot of the people I knew, were people who used, were people with that criminal history. I lived on the Native American reservation. So I lived in Lac du Flambeau at the time. And that comes with a whole nother ballgame of stigma. Okay. Especially where I live. And I saw the way that people were treated when they came in on overdoses, right? Like here I am an EMT and I'm like narcaning people and like trying to save their life, right? And we get them in the hospital and the doctors and the nurses are so overworked. One, okay, and I give them credit. I know they're overworked, but jaded and not educated on addiction. To them, it's one more waste of space. The stuff that I heard come out of people's mouths, the comments, the level of care that wasn't given, the level of respect that wasn't given broke me. That was a really, really hard thing to watch, especially knowing that I knew a lot of these people and these people knew me. Like the fact that I was from the area I was and lived the life I was and was working in that job, like people looked at me and were like, can't you help me? Can't you tell them like I'm a person, like I need help? Okay. And given, were there some seeking pain meds and were there some like there for a sandwich and a soda? Yes, that's real. That is part of our society and our culture. Things we need to fix, topic for another time. But the other part was, oh my God, Punny, that's so funny. Punny said I was addicted to playing the Oregon Trail, but I slipped up today and now I'm back on the wagon. That's freaking funny. Sorry, squirrel moments. I have ADHD. Please forgive me. But going back to the story, it was really hard to watch that kind of behavior in the ER. Even harder to see some of the people I knew get treated the way that they got treated, right? I could give them all the care and the support, but at the end of the day, I'm not their nurse and I'm not their doctor, okay? So as I continued to work in the ER, especially my local one here, I have to say, like Howard Young Medical Center, shout out to you, Woodruff, Wisconsin. You are amazing because you were willing to listen and learn, at least when I was there, right? So I finally got comfortable enough that I started talking to the doctors because I'm in school and I'm interning and I'm doing other things and they're like awesome people that work there. But I start telling my story of my addiction and I start telling people like what I've gone through. And, with substance abuse comes criminality, comes domestic violence, comes poverty, comes all of this stuff, right? And trust me, I had a full suitcase of each of those topics right along with me in life. Okay. People stopped and listened. Doctors stopped and listened. Nurses stopped and listened. And that was a huge thing. Now, the conversations weren't always comfortable, right? Who am I? I'm like the lowly EMT basic, like, right? Coming up to the doctor and being like, can't you be nicer to the Narcan patient? It was really about telling my story because they knew me, right? They had a connection with me. They've been working with me. They have a personal connection. So being able to give them my story and being able to share my experience and tell them how that felt, all of a sudden eyes opened, hearts opened, and communication, and people started listening, right? Thank you for the love, Deb. But that's a real thing. We can start to change the stigma, the shame, the mindsets of people. But it takes having sometimes the difficult conversations, the hard conversations. I've been posting a lot on like my Facebook communities, into my local community groups, right? And I live in northern Wisconsin, okay? We're pretty stuck on our ways up here, okay? We have a lot of that, okay? But I'm starting to see changes. Now, I'm also starting to see the same old attitudes and beliefs on some of those posts, right? But I'm also starting to see other people speak up. People that have gone through addiction, people who have had sons or daughters they've lost to addiction, children that have grown up without their parents, teenagers that are watching their parents destroy themselves, being raised by their grandparents or in foster. Like, that's the reality. But those people are speaking out and sharing their stories. And that is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. I don't know how many times I've gotten asked, especially because I'm a little rough around the edges, right, guys? Okay, if you follow me on Substack, if you follow me on TikTok, if you see me out there on the socials, like, I'm rough around the edges. But that's because I'm real. I'm a real person who lived through real crap, who survived in some pretty shiesty ways, who came out to the other side, right? But at the same time, like, we need to keep having more of those conversations because they're important and they are the only reason things are going to change. I put a post on one time and I had this person who claimed they were a doctor for Aspirus, which is one of our major hospital systems up here, right? And they posted in one of like the county community pages up here. Oh, they are lucky they hid their identity, because community members came out of the woodwork to be like, who the are you and what are you doing? Because they had no empathy, no understanding. They're like, addicts are a waste of space. They should all just fucking die. We're not giving them Narcan. Why are we wasting money? Like, and that is like, oh, right? Heartbreaking. I get so mad when I read that stuff. Okay, but me being the professional, right? Trying to be the professional. Yeah, Deb, totally. So I comment professionally, right? And it takes me a while. But I come at it with facts and figures and personal experience, empathy and understanding. I finally was able to whittle away at this person enough to be like, look, I respect where you're coming from. Everybody has their opinions, but why? You feel really strongly about this. Like, your opinions on this, like, addiction and recovery, especially being a person in the medical field, like, they are very, very strong. And I wonder what happened to shape the way that you think and feel about this. And you know what happened? They told me. They told us all on Facebook that they had a family member who was an abusive alcoholic and left the family. And their hurt and their angry at that, their hurt and their anger at that family member affected the way that they viewed every single person struggling with addiction or severe mental health. Right? So now you get what I'm saying about making that personal connection, right? Personal connections, right? Okay. If we make those personal connections and we start having conversations, things will start to change. Interesting concept, right? Okay. This is why I write the way I do. There are some things that I write, and if you're in recovery, you are going to be like, oh my God, I'm so triggered right now. I'm going to lose my, right? But it's for a reason. It's for a purpose. One, okay, triggers are going to happen everywhere, right? But we need those real and those raw stories. We need to make that personal connection. We need to show people that behind the label is a human being and a person. And those are the ways that we really start to break down and shift that stigma. And by asking questions, right? Like if you're a person who thinks mental health is a joke and addiction is just a moral failing, like get your shit together and do better, like go to church, do this. All right, I get you. I understand. There's a reason that people feel and think that way. Legit. There totally is. But what is that? Right? And the people that feel that way, we still need them to ask the questions. I need them to ask the questions and to share their opinions. Why? Again, because the conversation that it sparks, that's how we start changing things. Slowly, but surely. Right? Progress is progress. It doesn't matter if it's a mile or a millimeter. And honestly, most of us build our whole growth journey on millimeters, on those teeny tiny little bitty daily steps that sometimes we don't even feel or realize we're taking until all of a sudden we look back and we're like, oh shit, how did I get here? What happened? Right? But that's a really cool moment. And that's one of those full circle moments that comes back around. So I have an article about this. It goes more in depth, right? My voice, okay, that real, raw, authentic tone, that clinical lived experience, right? Watch out for that because that's coming out tomorrow, right? But I also want to pose this question, okay? Because really, yes, I write for me, but I also write for you, for every single person that reads my stuff, every single person that responds to one of my notes, every single person that likes a video, that follows, that shares, that subscribes, right? I do it for you. You and you and you and you and you, okay? Because I want to be that person that I wish I would have had early on, and that's the way that we do it. Right? Right. Okay. So look for that article coming out tomorrow. I also wanted to let my Substack family know, okay, that I am going to gift paid subscriptions to 25% of the new followers for the next 48 hours. So that's actually going to be extended out till tomorrow at midnight. So if you have read my Substack, if you have not subscribed, if you want to gift a subscription to somebody in a way, sign them up, let them know about this, because honestly, I believe that access to help and support should not be hindered by finances. Like we all need it to live, not gonna lie. I need finances to live, okay? I'm not making $1 million over here, as you can tell, okay? But I want to be able to offer that. I also wanted to let people know that I'm also doing a couple of new, more intense packages for my coaching and my counseling services. So there's more details about that on my Substack, more details about that on all of my socials. So please follow, like, and share. I also do offer a sliding fee scale, okay, that follows like the federal poverty income guidelines, okay, because people, not going to lie, I still fit into those guidelines. Okay. The world is expensive. Therapy is not cheap. But I want to try to make things as potentially accessible as we can. So I also do offer a few scholarship spots for clients. So you can always reach out to me if you are looking for some help and support in those areas as well. So lastly, I want to leave you guys today with story. Oh boy, right? Story time. Okay. But I want to share this to you guys, and I want to be vulnerable with it, and I want to be real with it, because I think that'll give a better understanding for you guys to know who I am and what I do and why I do it. Okay. Like it's one thing to say, oh, I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor and I'm a recovery coach and I'm an expert in my field and blah, 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 right? It's one thing to hear all that, but it's one thing to feel like you get to know me and where I come from a little bit more. So this is what I want to share with you today. Okay. So I want to take you to a night in the dead of winter. Okay. Dead of winter, Wisconsin, that really still lives in my bones. Okay. So let me set this up for you so you can really feel and vision this, okay? It's a winter night. The wind is absolutely howling like it's trying to rip the whole world apart. Snow is falling in like thick, just relentless white sheets, big wet flakes that just sting your face and that just pile up on everything way too fast. The temperature is well below zero, and the wind chill making it feel like it's way more than minus 20 degrees below zero, right? And I am lying in the back of my old pickup truck. I remember the bed was lined with cardboard boxes, and cardboard doesn't do anything against the cold, okay? If you've ever been homeless and had to live with corrugated material, not fun, okay? The chopper was on the truck, and the tailgate window, right, was out. Just enough so I could see through it, okay? And I'm sitting in a parking lot, backed in, lights off, freezing my ass off, right? It was so cold. All I can remember is my breath just constantly fogging up in front of me, right? And it was so cold. And I could just remember sitting there in the cold and the smell of like, there's a certain smell that winter has, okay? It's so cold, it just has that. And weirdly enough, gun oil. So in my hands, I had my 270 Savage left-hand bolt action rifle, okay? I had earned this gun working summers with my grandpa, and I had carried this rifle through so many hunts. I had tracked deer through the same cold environment I was sitting in now, and I could feel its weight. Oddly familiar, right? But its weight really steadied my aim. And now that rifle that was part of so many family memories for me was pointed up at the window of a house. That gun was so heavy against my chest, and honestly, it was so cold that I could still feel the cold from the steel in my hands through the gloves. So through that window, I watched through the scope. I watched these burgundy curtains. It glowed, just this warm light, right? And then I saw shadows move behind those curtains. Two shapes, close together. And it was my husband and her, right? In my head, this lie just screamed. If I could just make her disappear, everything will finally be okay. Now back home, in the 10-foot by 10-foot shed behind my in-laws' house, that is where I lived with him and where I left my whole world that night. This space crammed wall to wall, king-size bed, dresser, and a pack and play. Recliner, huge TV, microwave coffee pot, toaster, right? So we had electricity that ran from the house with an extension cord to the shed. We didn't have any running water, and we had an electric heater that heated the little room for us, right? Yeah. I lived in a shed in the backyard with my husband and my newborn baby. I brought my baby home on December 25th, 2012. And that little boy, he was perfect. Blonde hair, blue eyes, which was weird because I didn't have blonde hair, blue eyes in my family, at least that I knew of at the time. And he had this tiny, scrunched up little bitty face We actually ended up calling him our Benjamin Button baby. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but he was like a little old man baby. He was so cute. Absolutely beautiful in every single way. The hospital stay, though, that was hell. That was hell. My husband came and went, and I knew that he was leaving to go and be with another woman. And I was in the hospital, stuck there, recovering after a C-section, alone, with a baby, first-time mom. So going back to that night, I'd bundled him tight in his little blankets and put him in his pack and play. And as I left the shed, I turned back. I turned back and I looked at him, his little chest rising and falling, just peacefully sleeping. And I closed the door. And the guilt hit like a punch to the stomach. I was leaving my baby alone there. But the desperation that I felt about this whole other situation was so much louder. So I hear him lying in the truck, this anger and this hurt swirling around inside of me, and it was like I was running on like a fuzzy version of a movie autopilot, right? And for a split second, I remember feeling kind of this dark, twisted sense of power. Like, I control this. I can end this pain. I'm in control. Me. Right? But then, all of a sudden, I have a full motion picture rolling through my brain, right? And did that movie play in full vivid color? Blue and red lights flashing, strobing across my vision, blinding flashes that make everything just disjointed. Okay, if you've ever been arrested or pulled over in the dark, like, you know what I'm talking about, right? That sharp ratchet and clink of cuffs locking with my arms behind my back. That metal biting into my wrists, cold, unyielding. The back seat of the squad car, vinyl seats, sticky, cold, hard, and the sharp chemical smell of old coffee, vomit cleaner, stale cigarettes. That smell clinging to everything. I could feel my shoulders aching from the awkward angle sitting in the car, my arms pinned behind me. And the worst thing in that whole movie that played in my head was my tiny little Benjamin Button baby. Tiny little guy, right? Alone. Growing up without me. And maybe turning into the monster that his father was. And worse, repeating the same chaos, addiction, hurt, dysfunction that everybody was going through at the time. That vision slammed into me so hard, and I know it's insane, all right? I knew I wasn't this person. And the next thing I knew, I'm climbing out of the back of the truck. My legs were pretty much frozen and numb at that point, right? I get out, I get back into the cab, I start the truck, and I drive back through the snow. Get through the snow, back to the shed, right? And I push open the door. That little electric heater's just humming away, right? And then I watch my little son stir in the back and play. And he wakes up. And he flashes me that huge, goofy, crazy baby smile like that newborns get. pure light in the dark, right? And it's like he was saying to me, like, you made the right choice, Mom. You came back. That wrecked me. Oh my God, crying. Couldn't handle myself, hyperventilating, puking, coughing. It was awful. It's like my chest completely cracked open with shame, relief, and a crazy amount of love all at the same time. The crash after all of this happened, after this event, was brutal. I didn't tell anyone. Shame whispered in my ear and in my heart that I was crazy, that I didn't deserve to breathe, let alone be a mom and have this perfect little baby. Suicidal thoughts drug me down really bad. Postpartum was insane. I felt so utterly alone and worthless and completely invisible. And I'll tell you, okay, it takes years from that moment of stumbling, falling, fighting before I finally leave that relationship when my kids were like 4 and 5. So that's a good chunk of time, right? Now, when I look back at that woman in the truck, honestly, I just want to wrap her up in blankets and love and say, you weren't a monster. You were hurting so badly that you couldn't see straight. You needed help. You needed boundaries. You needed real support. Now I'm 10 years sober from meth, right? 10 years sober from meth. My kids are thriving, happy, healthy, safe. Their biological dad's rights were terminated, unfortunately. But my husband, my current husband, the one who stayed, the one that's been there, adopted them and helped us close that chapter with love instead of pain. So, looping back to this truck story, right? Because this story isn't just mine. The reason I told you this story is that we all have our versions of that truck. Well, let me explain. The freezing, desperate place where we chase the lie that if only one thing changes, a person, the addiction, the pain, the job, the husband, the kids, that one thing changes, then we will finally be fine. Sound familiar? Yeah. But the real healing starts inside. It is messy and it is hard, but it is worth it. It is. Really, really is, guys. It's really worth it. So my challenge is to you, okay? If you have followed and you have listened to the story on the live here, is today, tomorrow, I want you to think back and I want you to name your truck, your moment. Write it down, say it to someone safe. Take one small, honest, itty bitty little step. It could be a millimeter, it doesn't have to be a mile. Reach out, set a boundary, and believe that you deserve better. Believe that you deserve better. Truly believe that you deserve better. Because you are not alone. And there is a warm, stable, and thriving life sitting on the other side of all of this. It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But I'll tell you what, it sure is amazing. It really, really is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for being here and listening. And Deborah, I'm so sorry that your internet froze. Um, I think this is just a live event, so only I am live, but I do have, for everybody, I do have a free live group tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you need that link or can't find it, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to send it to you. It is every Saturday. It's free. It's open for everybody. I will be there. And I would love to see you or anybody else there. So thank you so much for taking time to listen to my live today, both everybody here on Substack and everybody out in the TikTok world. Thank you. Appreciate you all. And I hope that you all are able to move forward and have an amazing weekend. Take care of yourself. Do something nice for yourself. Eat something green. Have something good. Take a walk. Brush your teeth. Whatever it is that gets you going through your day. All right. I will see you all next time. Thank you so much for being here with me. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Deb, thank you for being here. Thank you for writing. Thank you for commenting. I will see you all next time. Progress is progress, whether it's a mile or a millimeter, guys.